Welcome to this video tutorial in which we're going to look at making this little pewter smiley. This smiley here has been cast out of pewter, and pewter is a really useful material to be able to cast with because pewter is a metal, it's an alloy that melts at quite a low temperature, melts at about 230 degrees Celsius, which is much lower than steel, for example, which melts at about 600 degrees Celsius. And pewter is made from mostly tin, about 90% tin, and the rest is mostly copper. You can get a few other metals in there, but usually it's tin and copper. You'll notice that the finish here is quite rough. We can actually polish this finish up, or you can keep this rough finish if you like it. It has a thickness. In this particular case, I think the thickness is about 3 millimeters, and we're going to try and do the same with ours. And we've got the details of the eyes and the mouth here. What I might do with my video tutorial is show you actually how to make it so that rather than being holes all the way through, the eyes and the mouth here can actually be indents or blind holes with a bit of pewter covering the back here. So it allows us to basically create details onto our pewter pieces. So without further ado, let's carry on with the tutorial. Now I've started here by working with an image from the internet. Here's the smiley that I'm going to work with, and it's got a margin on the outside and a shadow at the bottom, which is going to cause a problem. So what I've done is I've cropped that up in paint.net so that I've lost the background, I've lost the shadow, and I've got transparent background. If you don't know how to do that, please check out my other video on my channel about cropping images using paint.net. It's a very essential skill. I strongly suggest you make sure you know how to do that. The software we're actually going to use to make the smiley, we're going to use a piece of computer-aided design software or CAD software, and we're going to be using TechSoft 2D Design, which is a really fantastic 2D CAD package designed specifically for schools. And what I've got here is a template file that I would like you to start with as well. Now this template file can be found, let me have a look here. Have I got the right location? No, I haven't, so I'm going to pause the video for a second and find the right location. Okay, so here we are. The right location is this network drive here. Hopefully you can see that. You can pause the video there. And the actual file you're looking for is this one here. At the moment, this is 2D Design template for Pewter Molds version 2.0. By the time you get to do this yourself, I might have improved the file settings and have an updated version. Notice as well that at the moment this is a year 11 project that I currently run. It's actually in the process of turning into a year 10 project, so this may well be year 10 pewter casting. So that will give you this file right here, and there's a few things I need to just clarify about this design. This area here represents the milling table on our CNC milling machine. I'm just going to bring that across to the right there for a second, and I'm going to bring this graphic in right here. Let's just do that and bring it across here. So this is the milling machine. This yellow square here that you can see is actually this milling area. And we've got a self-centering vise on here which sits on top of the milling table, and it actually holds the modeling foam that we're going to be using, the high density modeling foam, kind of on the left hand margin but halfway up the actual milling table. And if I just come to my next picture here, I think I've zoomed in. Yes, I've got a tape measure on here now to show that this little block of modeling foam here is roughly 9 centimeters up and is roughly 75 centimeters in height. So I've got here 90 millimeters, did I say centimeters? 90 millimeters up from the origin here, and I've got the actual height here of the modeling foam to be 75. Now at this point I'm going to select this shape, and I'm going to go to fill here, solid, color. I'm going to choose this top right color. Okay, and hopefully you can see now that this filled area represents the top area, the top face of this piece of modeling foam. So that's why it's positioned in this location. If you were to add elements to be milled out in this blank area above, to the right or below, then you're going to have a problem. Basically nothing's going to happen, or in a worst case scenario the milling tool is going to hit part of this self-centering vise and basically break the tool. So you've got to make sure that whatever you create is going to be either within this area, or notice as well we can actually have a piece of modeling foam that is twice the size, that extends all the way across here, in which case I'll be working, if I just go to the fill tool here, solid again. I'll choose that top right color. There's a reason for that, I'll show you later. Okay, and this now represents the full size. Whatever modeling foam I put into the self-centering vise here, it must be pushed up against this far left edge here of the self-centering vise. The right grips here are simply used if we have the larger piece of modeling foam. So let's just keep on looking through the range of pictures here. Here's a close-up to show you the actual positioning. So you can see here it is actually slightly below 9 centimeters or 90 millimeters, and that's why what I've done here, although this says 90, I've actually offset the origin here by 2 millimeters. So that actually shifts the whole thing basically from being 90 to 88 millimeters from the bottom. Notice that's actually 88. Let's keep going. This effectively is what we're going to make. There's a little hole up here which was a mistake in this example. This is another one that I made at a previous time. But hopefully you can see how that bears a very close resemblance to that. So let's go ahead and see how we're going to do this. I'll take that picture off to the side there. I think I'll close that one down, and I'm going to maximize this window. I'm going to bring in my little smiley. Excuse me. And to do that, what I should be able to do, I think, can I drag and drop it in? Oh dear, no, it doesn't like that. Dear me. Fair enough then. What can I do instead then? I know what I'm going to have to do. I'm going to have to go to bitmap, import bitmap, and I'm going to have to browse to this location. So here we go. It's the same location that you can see here in my example, but no doubt you'll have saved your smiley to your own network drive, won't you? So you'll be okay. Let's come to network resources, lesson, MYP, technology, bish bash bosh. I've got it in tutorials. Now then, 2D design version 2, Mr. Shaw's examples, is that it? Smiley, and it's the PNG file. Oh, hang on a second here. Look, I've got this saved as a paint.net image. Oh, it seems to have liked that. Fair enough then. I must have PNG files set up as paint.net files. Okay, that's interesting. Well. Now, hang on a second. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to import the other bitmap, the smiley, which is from the internet. It's a JPEG, and it's got this white border around the outside. Yes, and let me show you why this is not going to work. Now, I want to have this smiley fitting on the small piece of modeling foam, which, as you can see here, has a width of 50 millimeters. This is the small piece of modeling foam. In fact, okay, I can't do it now, but this here defines the midpoint. This is the larger piece of foam, and the smaller piece of foam is basically to the left of this line. So it's 50 millimeters in width. Now, I need to have a margin of 10 millimeters all the way around the outside to make sure that none of the pewter leaks out when I'm actually casting the product. So that means that 50 minus 10 to the left minus 10 to the right gives me a width of 30 millimeters. So I'm going to set my width here of my little smiley to be 30 millimeters. Okay. Now, let's pick this up. I'm going to make sure I've got either gridlock or step lock turned on. I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to drop it in this area right here. Now, before I go any further, I'm also going to change the fill color of this larger rectangle to represent the large piece of modeling foam to no fill. Okay, now we can see the actual size of the modeling foam I want to work with. Let's zoom in here, zoom in tool, click and drag a bounding box, and now we see the problem. Because my graphic has got a white margin, the actual smiley that I get is much smaller than 30 millimeters. In fact, if I get the dimension line tool and actually try and work that out, I'm actually going to end up with a design that's only 20 millimeters in width. So that's why I've removed the margin, the white margin of the graphic before I've brought the graphic in. So let's delete. Oh, incidentally, at this point, I'm going to show you, if I want to undo my processes here, here's undo. This is probably the biggest limitation. There are a few issues with 2D design, but for the most part, it's an awesome program, and you can do amazing things with computer-aided manufacturing, like laser cutting and milling. But this is the biggest bugbear, and that is that you only have one chance to undo. So if I undo once, I can't undo anymore. So I can't undo the adding of this graphic. I can only redo or undo that one action. So that's the big pain. There are ways around that which you've probably come across already in other video tutorials, but I will explain a few as I go along. Let's delete that smiley. Let's now go back to bitmaps, import bitmap, and now I'm going to import the bitmap that has got no margin, 30mm width. There we go, and notice, look, that's instantly the right size. Now I'm also going to bring it down. I'm also working with the step lock here, so it's snapping perfectly. I'll bring it down to the bottom. And the reason for that is because I want to have the space at the top here as much as possible to have what's called a well and a runner. Now, what do I mean by a well and a runner? Well, have a look at this image here. What I've done here is I've used a Dremel, which is basically like an engraving tool but with an abrasive head on the end, to make a well here. Now this well allows me to pour in the molten pewter from the pewter casting machine at 230 degrees Celsius. The pewter is going to fill up this well until it gets to this point here. Then it's going to overflow into this runner. The runner is going to pour the pewter down into this cavity, and it's going to fill the empty spaces, leaving a hole here for the two eyes and the mouth. And I've also got a little indent here as well, so I can kind of make it into a little key fob or something. What else can I say about this? Yes, I've got the face this way around because let's imagine it was the other way around. Let's just do that. Let's imagine that I was pouring in the pewter at the top still, so that the well on the runner here is actually at the top, and it's filling up with pewter. One hopes you realise that when it gets to this point here, there's going to be a pocket of air trapped in this point, like the upper lip of the smiley. So this will fill up, but there'll be a pocket of air here that can't escape. And so that's why I'm doing the smiley this way around. Now obviously this is unique to the smiley. You might have some designs that it's not too important, but do be aware that you want to avoid any air pockets in your design. So that's something to really consider and design into the development of your product. Let's minimize that and let's keep on going. So I've got it in the right orientation. Let's now zoom in some more and really start to draw this shape. So now it really is just a simple case of just using the drawing tools here to create this product. And because I'm snapping to the grid, it should be pretty straightforward. So let's get a circle tool here. Is that the center? Let's find out. It is, but look, I've got a dotted line, for goodness sake. Let's come to the line settings. Let's make sure there I've got a solid line. That's more like it. There we are. Now it does just squeeze slightly out of the side, but I think it's because this bitmap of the smiley off the internet isn't quite symmetrical. But I've got in there my outline, and I know it's perfect because this has it's the same diameter here as the dotted frame that defines my drawing area. So I know that's exactly 30mm across. Let's just point that out as well. I can also see, if I look at the absolute grid references here, I can see that the X value that will appear here is 10 and this is 40. So 40 minus 10 is 30, so I know it's perfect. Let's keep going. I'm also going to get a line, and I'm going to temporarily put a construction line right down the center. Now I know that's right because I've got the X value of the absolute grid reference to 25, which is 10 plus 15, so that's right in the center. Why have I done that? Well, this is a symmetrical design around this central line of symmetry. So I'm only going to draw the left hand side of the smiley, and then I'm going to mirror it across to the right. Let's do the ellipse. Now, can I do an ellipse in here? Looks like I can't. I thought I could do ellipses. Here we are. Here's the ellipse. Perfect. Can I do ellipses? Oh dear. Go away. Cancel. Sorry about that. Can I do an ellipse here using an elliptical bezier? Yes, I can. I mean, there's loads of drawing tools here. I hold on the mouse button and loads of things appear. I could talk about them all. I'm not. You can experiment yourself. I'm going to go with this ellipse tool. And notice here that I haven't really got the grid accuracy. So I'm actually going to right-click on the grid settings, and I'm going to put this as 0.25 by 0.25. So my step spacing is from millimeter grid resolution down to a quarter of a millimeter grid resolution. Sorry. I would always suggest you have either some sort of grid lock or step lock on. Very rarely do I turn it off, and when I do, I always make sure I use radial locks or attach tools. But in this case, I'm going to make sure I keep the step lock on. Really saves a lot of time. Notice now that's snapping nicely. So this is going to be a Y value. I'm looking here. The Y value here is going to be 121.75. So I'm going to get the left edge, 121.75. That looks good. Click. Why is that? Oh, I've got a center ellipse. Escape key. Why did I have that? I want a rectangular ellipse. Let's try that again. And that looks nice. Done. There's my ellipse. Super. Now it's a bit difficult that it's in black, isn't it? I'm going to suggest here that I can select that with a selection tool. Shift select this circle. Let's go to line color and let's make these red. I can work with red. It's going to be ignored by the milling machine. Incidentally, our laser cutter uses red for engraving, but milling machine, we don't use red. So I can do that, and that means it's going to stand out a bit easier. That's nice. Let's do the mouth now. Now, for the mouth, I'm going to zoom in again, and let's get that. No, let's now get the Open Bezier Curve tool, which is a fantastic tool to use. In fact, do I? No, I won't. I'm going to go instead with the Open Polyline tool. Yes, I will. Line color, I only changed it for those other lines. Let's make it red again. And let's now click on every point where there's a clear turn or arc or corner to the profile of this mouth. So I'm not going to be clicking all the way up here. This is just simply an arc. That's easy. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to click over here as close as I can using this 1/4 of a millimeter step lock. Now I'm going to come out to, let's see. I'm going to come out to here. Let's see. There. Is that sensible? Let's go there. Let's go there. Let's see. Is this the right way to do it? Let's just go for it and see what happens. Up to there and then back down to there. Now you might be scratching your head thinking, what are you doing? Well, all will become clear, I hope, in a second. I'm going to get the selection tool. Oh, by the way, I rushed that one there. If you didn't, whoops. If you want to show what I just did then, sorry. When I finished drawing the line there, I right click to finish, or you double click on the last line. The best thing to do is when you finish, right click and you can finish drawing the line. Where was I? I'm going to click on this line. I'm going to go to Start Edit. And I'm going to click and drag and select all of the lines here. And I'm going to convert them all to curves. Now what that does is it gives me these little handles that let me modify this polyline. And I can turn it into an arc. So if I just drag that down, I can create an arc here. Now this is where having the grid lock is so good, because I can make sure that this handle is pointing out perfectly horizontally to the left. And then I'm going to have this as an arc coming down, and I can modify the position of these handles to get just the right arc that I want for this smile. Good. Okay, let's look at this one here. This is going to be the same. In fact, I might put it to the same position. Again, using the grid settings. And then here have this coming down. Does that look good? Yeah, I think so. Let's have that a little bit longer there. And a bit longer there. I'm liking that. Good. Okay, what about at the top here? I'm going to zoom in more. Maximum control now. Just control the height there a little bit. Okay, so let's start edit and let's see what I'm going to do. Now I actually want to have these nodes here as continuous curves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that down so it's horizontal, and then I'm going to, that's by left clicking, and then right click. Now as I right click, notice that now the two nodes move simultaneously. You probably know all this already from other video tutorials that you've done, but that's a very powerful thing to be able to do. So here I'm going to put those two handles to horizontal, and then now when I right click, it keeps a perfect curve there. Very simple little tool, but incredibly powerful. Now this is when I can start to just tweak this design a little bit. Now be careful here. Look, if I move up to this point here and I click, notice that the two handles at the top right there are going to overlap, and that could be a problem. I need to try and avoid that if I can. Now, do I need to change the resolution here of my grid? Possibly I do. Well, let's just persevere and see what happens. Why can't I get that? Fair enough then. Let's see what's going to happen here. Let's have this level. You know, really I'm just pottering around here trying to make this look perfect. This is just for you guys to work your way through. Let's get this horizontally level and then making sure that it comes out. And what's going to happen here? Am I happy with that position? I might just bring it up like that. Should this have a little arc here? This is where perhaps I can turn step lock off. This is one of the unusual situations where I'm going to go for it, because it gives me that little bit more control just to make this absolutely perfect. Now I can right click on here, make sure I'm always right clicking. This is looking better now. Oh yes, I'm liking this. Always right clicking here so I get this nice continuous curve. I like that a lot. Okay, so if I'm happy with that, right click on the handle. I think that looks rather nice. Let's zoom out here and see what we've got. Okay, now, let's just put this into context. End edit and I'm done. Put it into context here. I've been worried, I've been fiddling around there, and I'm talking about differences to maybe 1/4 of a millimeter maximum. And you're probably there thinking, oh, isn't that a bit over the top? Well, maybe, but you know what? I'm a perfectionist and I like to have things absolutely perfect. So, and of course, as well, you've got to bear in mind that this is a graphic off the internet and it's a little bit fuzzy, as you can see. Hopefully, you're going to be, in the long run, working from your own designs, which you'll be doing technical drawings of before you go into making it on Texsoft 2D, and so you're going to have far more detail and far more accuracy in your own designs than this rather scruffy looking, rather pixelated graphic. I just noticed that I wasn't quite happy with this top arc of lip, so I'm just going to move this down. I've turned on step lock again. Let's just move that down here and try and get a better edge. I'm liking that already. Okay, notice there that if I click here or here, I select other things, and I've actually selected this pink background that covers everything. Don't panic when this happens, just make sure that you click off, or you can just select any other tool and you'll deselect it. Okay, so this is looking rather good, but obviously I've only done one side of the mouth and one eye. Now, imagine I had to do the other side as well perfectly. That's going to take me a lot longer as well. So now the beauty is I should just be able to pick up this eye and this mouth, and I should just be able to go to the transformation tool and do a mirror image. I want to do a repeat, and then with the step lock turned on, or with the grid lock. Is this snapping to the grid? Yes, it is. I can click and click again. That's defined this central line of symmetry, and it's just drawn the other eye and the mouth. Now, it's interesting to note at this point that clearly this smiley that I got off the internet, this bitmap, is actually a bit sloppy. To the human eye, it looks perfect, but now we can see with the perfect symmetry of my vector-based smile here that actually the bitmap is off. And I'm going to stick with my vector because I know my vector is perfect, and I realize that the bitmap has the error. So that's looking good. Right, so let's finish off here. Now, I need to make it so that this area is going to be completely removed as a cavity into the modeling foam, but I want to leave the eyes and the mouth as they are so that the pewter is not going to settle in the eyes and the pewter is not going to settle in the mouth. And that process will allow me to create the smiley that I showed you earlier. Let me bring it back again so you can see that. Okay, so there's the smiley. So, I need to have this mouth and these eyes as basically, and here's the mold. Here's one with a blinking, with a winking eye. I want to have these as areas where the pewter is not going to go. So I only want to actually mill out this brown area where the modeling foam has been burnt, which is then going to be filled with the pewter. Now, to do that, this is probably the most complex bit. This is what you need to understand. In fact, I think what I'll do at this point is I'm going to pause. I'll pause at that point. I'm going to suggest you save your work, and then in the next video, I'll do the essential skills bit, because so far everything I've done is pretty basic Texsoft 2D work, and you should know what you're doing already. The next video really gets to the nuts and bolts of this project.